Welcome back, guys. Perturabo and the Iron Warriors ambushing Rogal Dorn and the Imperial Fists. How did this came to be and what happened? That's what we are about to find out. So let's do this. After the internment of the Emperor in the Golden Throne, Dorn was stricken with grief. He felt the Emperor's near demise to be his fault and led his legion on a crusade of penitence across the Imperium. He was summoned back to Terra when Robert Guilliman, now the Lord Commander of the Imperium and Imperial Regent, announced the adoption of his Codex Astartes, turning the large Space Marine legions into the much smaller 1000 warriors Space Marine chapters. Dorn was initially outraged at this proposal, feeling that the Imperium blamed him, and rightly so, he thought, for the fall of his brother Primarchs. However, realizing what damage another internal conflict could do to the fragile peace of the Imperium, Dorn finally relented and agreed to the second founding. This was a dark period in Rogal Dorn's life. He believed he had both failed the Emperor and his legion now faltered without the guiding light of the Master of Mankind. Dorn was shaken to the core, shocked that the Imperium no longer trusted him or his legion, and that now, after the loss of the Emperor and the failure of the Great Crusade, the Brotherhood of the Imperial Fists Legion would be sundered as well. Without battle to focus them, the Imperial Fists hovered on the brink, unsure of their future, with Dorn despairing that he had not seen the Imperium changing while he hunted down the traitors. Dorn, Leman Russ of the Space Wolves, and Vulcan of the Salamanders all at first refused the dictates of the Codex, and the Imperium seemed poised to tear itself apart in civil war again. The Imperial Fist strike cruiser, the Terrible Angel, was even fired upon by the newborn Navis Imperialis for the Imperial Fist's supposed heresies against the Imperium's new order. It was at this time that the Iron Warriors issued a clear challenge that Dorn could not refuse, by building an immense fortress and daring the Imperial Fists to attack it. Some controversy exists about the next event in Rogal Dorn's life. What is clear is that the Imperial Fists could not be as easily divided into chapters as, for example, the Ultramarines could. The total commitment to the entire legion was spread into each Imperial Fist's Astartes, and many did not wish to form their own successor chapters. Dorn found the answer to this problem in meditation through self-inflicted pain, using a device known as the Bane Glove. The Bane-induced vision that the Primarch had while using this device revealed that his legion had to be redeemed in the eyes of the Emperor, and that the way to salvation was through Bane and self-sacrifice. Dorn meditated for 7 full days in the Bane Glove, until he saw a vision of the Emperor. Dorn realized in that moment that the Emperor was not dead and gone, and that he still watched over his sons and the Imperium from within the Golden Throne. Decreeing that the Imperial Fists would all metaphorically enter the Bane Glove as a legion and emerge as separate chapters, symbolically reborn, Dorn led his die-hard warriors in an assault on the Iron Warriors' fortress. The collective Bane needed to cleanse the legion and break it into chapters was decided by Dorn to be the siege of an Iron Warrior's fortress, the so-called Iron Cage. The battle known as the Iron Cage has gone down in history as one of great tragedy and remorse for the Imperial Fists, for not only it was a disaster, it also signaled the end of the 7th Legion as a united fighting force. The battle known only as the Iron Cage has gone down in history as one of great tragedy and remorse for the Imperial Fists. However, some suspect that Dorn already knew the outcome when he threw himself and his legion into the assault. It is believed Dorn knew that many of his zealous warriors would never accept the dissolution of the legion as the adoption of the Codex Astartes required, and that by throwing themselves into the suicidal assault on the Iron Cage, they would be at least granted an honorable death, for that is exactly what many of them got. The Iron Cage was actually a defensive trap set by the Iron Warriors Traitor Legion on the mold of Sebastos IV. that was known as the Eternal Fortress, and which was a besieging force's nightmare straight from the depths of hell. The Iron Warriors were masters of siege and defense, and Perturabo's writings on the subject had even been retained by the Primarch Rupert Guilliman in the Codex Astartes. But Dorn was Perturabo's equal, and furious at the defiance of the traitors, the Imperial Fists launched an all-out assault straight into the heart of the Iron Warriors' defenses within the Eternal Fortress. Enraged that the enemy had dared raise their heretical banners over another Imperial world. Without any planning or strategy, the Fists fought with zeal, endurance, and sheer great determination, breaking out of every trap, fighting through every ambush, and breaching every defense that got in their way. Dorn led the attack, a colossus who threw back every assault. While the battle should have favored the Iron Warriors in their network of trenches and redoubts, the Imperial Fists matched the Iron Warriors' guile with cold fury. Brother fought brother in half-flooded trenches, tearing at each other with knives and chainswords when all ammunition was expended, neither giving nor expecting any quarter. The Iron Warriors' demon Primarch Perturabo had built the massive fortifications to mock the Imperial Fists, and Dorn led his most die-hard followers in a siege that would last for several weeks. The Iron Warriors, now Twisted Chaos Space Marines, claimed that the Imperial Fists suffered a crushing defeat, and that Dorn and his legion would have been wiped out if Perturabo hadn't prolonged Dorn's suffering so long that the Ultramarines managed to intervene. Imperial records of the battle indicate otherwise. The Imperial Fists had always been masters of siegecraft, and even unprepared and at a disadvantage, they fought like lions. Dorn stood as a giant in their midst, his mind clear with purpose after years of doubt and guilt. Eventually it became obvious that though the Imperial Fists had suffered horrible losses, the Iron Warriors could not finish them off, lacking the faith to make the ultimate sacrifice to achieve victory. During a pause in the fighting, Rupert Guilliman and his Ultramarines intervened in the struggle, extracting the battered Imperial Fists and letting the Iron Warriors escape. Guilliman had decided that the destruction of the Iron Warriors was not worth the death of Rogal Dorn, and so he came with the entirety of his Ultramarines to break up the brutal fight and drive the Iron Warriors off. With their cleansing in the fires of battle at the Iron Cage over, the Imperial Fists withdrew into seclusion, letting their successor chapters take to the field in their stead. For 2 solar decades, the Imperial Fists reorganized. Under the direction of Dorn, the chapter absorbed the tenets of the Codex Astartes, and by the time they reappeared on the battlefields of the Imperium, their adherence to the Codex was second only to the Ultramarines themselves. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay tuned for more.